Hamatakyapi. This is Nick. Thanks so much for supporting the Red Nation podcast and subscribing to our Patreon account. Your support has helped expand the podcast to 4 Indigenous-produced podcasts: Wo Stay, which focuses on the politics of the Navajo Nation; Decolonize Buffalo, which takes on the issue of decolonization in the world and Indigenous communities; and, of course, Red Power Hour, which is hosted by Pilamayaye, which is a Red Nation podcast for Red Nation comrades to talk about our work and what's going on in the world. I'm taking a 2-week break this holiday season just to give an opportunity to other comrades to take over the Patreon and the Red Nation podcast feed. Next month, we will have reports from Hawaii and the decolonization efforts going on there, as well as some book reads and close study groups for pertinent issues facing the Indigenous movement as well as the movement towards decolonization. This episode is a gift from us to you from John Trudell, a inspiration to the Indigenous movement, as well as somebody who holds a specific, historic significance within Indigenous thought. We hope that everyone is safe, warm, and well, and with their family during this holiday season. The road ahead is very difficult, but we hope to bring more cutting-edge analysis from an Indigenous perspective, as well as from an anti-imperialist and left perspective. We hope that during this season that you consider giving a Patreon subscription to family members. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month. And with the 1-year subscription plan, that's about $10 a year. So you get a discount, and, it goes a long way. And so we're working towards, launching a Native Reads podcast next year, and your support has been critical. Thanks so much again, Wopila Tonka, for everything that you have done to support this podcast as it continues to grow and evolve. Here at the Red Nation, we appreciate it, and we have a lot of exciting things coming up in 2021. And we're ready to fight, and we're ready to win. So thanks so much. Enjoy your time with your family and friends.
A very good morning to you. It is a Monday morning, October the 10th, 10/10/94. Welcome. This is Impact on KLOS. My name is Frank Sontag. Impact is the in-studio guest format where we discuss a wide variety of topics. Tonight I do have an in-studio guest who I have not met in person before, but I have followed John Trudell's work and commitment to, in my experience, making it a better world at the very least for a long time. And I do have John in studio across from me. And John, I want to welcome you to Impact this morning.
Well, glad to be here, man.
So you're a late nighter. You said you like the night, huh?
I'm a slave to the night.
Are you?
Yeah, I like the night world.
Yeah. We are slaves. A lot of us are slaves to other things as well.
Everybody's a slave.
What do you mean?
The society is enslaved by an economic system, and illusions of values and things like that. So I just think that, in the technologic society, that basically it operates on the enslavement of the energies of the human beings or the people.
Do most people stop to think about those things? I mean, we were told, I know me growing up, this American dream. Work hard and someday you'll have that house and that car. Do most people, you think, perceive themselves as being slaves to the system?
No, because most people are distracted by their insecurities and this rapidly increasing fear of survival and how they're going to survive economically, health-wise, all these types of things. So no, they don't relate to themselves as being enslaved because there's so many problems there that have to be dealt with. They don't really have time to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Off the air, I had mentioned to you that I'm struggling. And you said, in a sense, we are all struggling. What is the struggle about for you?
Wow. Well, I'm kind of general on it. It's like to do more good than bad while I'm here. Right? Or at least keep it even. But not to damage the world by my presence. And to me, that's how I relate to it.
Mm. To those that don't know who you are or any of your work, you educated me a couple of weeks ago at a talk because I automatically still, even though I don't want to admit it, I still label people. I see indigenous culture, sometimes I call them Native Americans. And you said, I'm not a Native American. Not to me directly, but in your talk. Who is John Trudell?
Depends on what day it is.
How about Sunday night at midnight, man? How about right now?
Oh, yeah. How about right now?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I can tell you that. But let's go after this Native American thing.
Okay.
All right.
This is, I think, is this Columbus Day or some nonsense?
Well, it's sometime soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It seems to me. We're in the middle of October. But it's this whole idea of Native American. Because when Europeans came to the Western Hemisphere, there were people here. And these people that lived here, basically, there were many cultures and many languages. But they were the people of this land base. And almost universally within this concept, they always referred to themselves in their own languages or cultures as the people, the human beings. But that was always a part of the self-identification, the identification of self, the people. And the Europeans came and they refused to recognize us as the people. They called us Indians. And to me, that was a very essential part of the genocide. It was just as much as the diseased blankets or the diseased Bibles, the guns. I mean, just this whole insane idea about the conquest. So they never recognized us as the people. We became this abstraction of Indians. So whereas the people have a continuity that goes way back into the ancient times. See, the Indians only have an identity going back to the arrival of the European. And it's an identity of genocide. And so it's like a severing of a memory or an essence that flows beyond time. It's part of our ancestry, what our DNA things are really about. But so anyway, we have 200 or 400 or a million years of that happened to us. And then within my lifetime, when we were struggling to survive, let's say, and we were known as the militants or the activists or whatever, the new terminology became Native American. So it didn't change the genocidal attitudes, consciousnesses, or unconsciousness behaviors against us. That changed our name. And it's like, but we're not native to America because we are older than America. In America, so we cannot be Native American because we are older than it. It is just a temporary name. It is a name that was created in these languages and these thoughts and these concepts and of cultures that are alien to this land. It does not spring from this land, and our DNA is connected to our land bases, and anyway, but we're not Native Americans. We're the people. And my feeling is that, it's an essential part of genocide to erase the memories of the people. It is a part of genocide. It's a sophisticated part of genocide because if you're busy erasing their minds, the society at large will accept any form of physical hardship you put them through, as long as they can physically know that they're there, whether they're suffering or not, but physically they're still there. But it's that other genocide that is the more deadly effect of assimilation as genocide, is that where they start to just erase our whole conscious connection to who we are. And it's an ongoing thing. See? So, I don't think that it's healthy for us, it just shows me, well, we still are in a situation where the Americans refuse to recognize who we are. They still don't see us.
Do you think the Americans, as it were, know who they are? Understand where they come from, understand their purpose here?
No, they don't have a clue. They're I mean, not to misunderstand, but the American people, the Americans, they are the descendants of tribes also. They have a tribal ancestry. And it's in the genetic memories, and it's way back. I mean, it goes through time. But we are all the descendants of tribes. I think that when I look around America, that memory isn't there. It's just not there. So that's why I say they don't really know who they are. It's not that they can't find out or cannot bring, or it's not that consciousness can't be brought back things, but at this point, just the way that things are. No, it's like, it's about, let's look at the past. We live in a society that does not follow the teachings of its past. Its commandments, or whatever you want to call it, right? But it's religious moral values. All right? I don't necessarily agree that that's really what it's all about. I think it's about responsibility. But we live in a technologic society that follows a dominator male god, and they say that they speak that they follow a religious moral value. But we live in a society that does not follow that religious moral value about coveting and stealing and killing and, all the stuff. The worship of false idols and things like that. It's, the society listens to none of those teachings. So I see that, to me, it's like they don't feel any sense of spiritual relationship, continuity to their own ancestry, their ancestral past. And at the state of mental confusion that exists that's called normalcy. All right? They are tolerating a situation in life where they continually and perpetually feel powerless. And because they tolerate and perpetuate that situation, they are spiritually disconnecting themselves from their descendants, from their future. Because the environment is continuing to be attacked, the life support systems of the planet. The systems of authority that call themselves government and business, they are entrenching this wage slave system it's inflation and recession and $1 trillion national debts and things. But see, what it is in the end is it's a form of an economic enslavement of our children and their children and their children. See? So it's like we live in a contemporary society that doesn't know who it is. They just don't know who they are. And this situation has become created.
And would you also say that this modern day society not only doesn't know who it is, but has virtually no understanding of power and its connection to power and what power is?
Yeah, very nicely put. I think we live in a time where the society relates to authority as power, and basically has no real understanding of power. All right, fine lines now. we're gonna all these fine lines. There's the reality and the illusion, right? Like there's the human and the being, and there's all. But we live in a time where through technologic progress and the whole concept of technologic, our conscious memories get erased of what is true and real about our ancestral past, and new memories get inbred through the generations, through the programming to meet the definition of technologic submission. All right, because that's in the end what it is. And And so everything gets defined for us. See, so we're well into the technologic Reich. We're well into it right now. And so by this stage of our human evolution, here we are surrounded by this this technologic Reich and its definition. And it has defined for us that power is authority. See, because whether it's money, whether you accumulate all the money, that's authority. That's really about authority. If you accumulate the military, that's really about authority. It's not about power. It's about authority. All right? It's to have dominator religions. It's not about power. It's about authority. But these systems of authority, now where power comes into play is we all have human consciousness and energy, essence, spirit. So these systems of authority mine our human energies, consciousness, essence, spirit as a power, turn it into a power to run their authority systems, which we always remain subservient to. Because if we look at, well, if money's what makes power and I don't have any money, well then guess what? That makes me, right? Or if whoever has the biggest gun is the most powerful and I don't have it, then guess what? That makes me. So we all get put in a situation where we're looking at we have no power whatsoever we have been lied to. They have authority. See, and that's what it is. Power is something else. Actually, they have authority and they maintain authority through violence and deceit because, in some way, because of their own lack of power.
Well, what is power then? If we're all, in a sense, led to believe we want it, it's all about having power. And what really is power?
Well, power, we could go on to many, we could chase abstractions here, right? I don't know. I think that power has to do human being, human physical being, spirit, human being, physical, spirit. And I think that power is in there, in relationship to the human beings. Power is in the clarity that is in that physical spirit, the coherency that is in that physical spirit.
Is that also where self-respect lies?
It's about, well, let's say, yes, it is about self-respect. It's about recognition of self, is really what it is. It's about recognition of self. See, but we've been mined by these technologic authority systems in ways becoming like dissected by race, culture, class, all right, and all the other little things that we get, and then dissected inside of our own heads with all the insecurities and the self-doubts and the guilts and the blames and all of this and that. See, so that we have no coherency, no clarity as physical spirits. And this has to be for us as human beings where power really is, because the authoritarians have went to great extremes, tremendous extremes, to keep us incoherent as physical spirits. See, so that it has to be, it's like I learned from the political days that about being spied upon, someone come to tell on you, or what is said in meetings or in public gatherings. See, and it made me understand, well, look, they have all the power, so to speak, authority, so what do they care what anybody says? See, so that means that means power is something here that we're not really looking at.
But if they had it, why would they worry about what you were doing? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I would think. Authority's always on shaky ground.
Authority tends to build itself on keeping people separated and powerless, and it's almost as if we're at war with each other.
Well, I mean, it's been brought down to the point of where at war with one another, at war with ourselves inside of our own heads. See, and now about the illusion and the reality. See, to me, this is all a part of the illusion. The reality is, it's about responsibility. See, we are responsible. Physical, spirit, human being. So we are responsible as physical spirits, as human beings. We are responsible to life. See, that's what it is. But we live in these authority systems of power that tell us and condition us to blame. They condition us with guilt, sin, and blame. See? And with that conditioning, then you're always the blamer. See, it's never your it's never one's responsibility. You carry the guilt, carry it all, see, but in the end, see, even that whole concept is like to feel guilty, to live lives dominated. Because, see, I mean, what always threw me off is that we're guilty for being here.
The moment we're born.
Yeah. That's insane. You know? But once we, again, their definition, but once we go by that technologic definition, then already our recognition of self is being attacked. And it conditions us to not take responsibility. It conditions us to blame, very minimally blame ourselves or someone else. But it does not teach us about responsibility. See, because if you feel even about guilt, see, we have to blame ourselves. See, and it's not about that. It's about responsibility and learning from the things that we go through. But it's about responsibility.
So this might be the next logical question, and probably a lot harder to answer, but where does one go, or how does one take up the search to find what is real, or is reality?
You find your own reality, man. You got a mind. You know, you have creative. We all have creative. We are all creative. It's just that we use too much of our creative process, our creative ability, irresponsibly. We use it on a daily basis to create, again, what our insecurity and our fears are. And I think that if we make conscious effort to spend part of that time using our creative ability differently, same way we would learn to do anything, so we have to tell our mind to do this, right? But start to use that creative part of us in a different way. And we should never lie to ourselves. Never. About who we are, what we're capable of. We should never lie to ourselves. We should always tell ourselves the truth, even if we don't like those truths. But we should always tell ourselves the truth. Because if we don't do that, how can we define our own basis of reality? And I think that we just head off, you know.
One of the things that seems to be so predominant right now is this other concept I just want to ask you to talk about for a minute. And then there's some other things I want to maybe talk about here, and in a little while we'll open the phone lines. I'm sure some of our listeners maybe would like to have some questions or comments for you. Fear, John. I do interviews every week with different types of guests, anywhere from psychologists to healers to business people to environmentalists to experts on the criminal justice system. And fear always comes up in the interview, that right now the world as we buy into, or the world exists, is so fear-filled.
That's because the people in that world don't know who they are. Their spirit is being eaten upon. Their individual collective spirit is being fed upon. It is the energy that runs the authoritarian system. So they don't, some of them are more obedient than others and more well-behaved than others and have their respectabilities and irrespectabilities in the different stratas of the society. But generally speaking, the society at large is not happy with itself. The fear. I mean, the system is run on fear. Think about the guilt, sin, and blame. Fear. It's run on it. I mean, you gotta fear your God. You gotta fear your Lucifer. So what's the difference? Right? And it's fear. Fear is a natural human feeling, and it's not a frivolous feeling. So but there also becomes a point when it's no longer fear, and it's just mass paranoia. And it's not really fear. Fear is when your heart jumps right in your throat because it just does. Fear is when it just spins and turns inside of you and your blood is running into itself. Fear is something that's very, very real. That's fear. I mean, there is fear. But then there is this collective paranoia, and that's what I think it is more than it is fear. But it has a nice, convenient little term. But there's this collective paranoia. Let's go back to the tribes. The people of America, they are the children of the tribes of Europe. And when they were still the tribes of Europe, they worshipped the earth as the mother and had an entirely different perception of reality. And that perception was to keep the harmony and the balance as much as possible. And somewhere historically in time, there appeared the dominator theory of God. And this dominator theory of God is that God was a male and everything was subservient. And this theory used its technology and its culture to make weapons of destruction, to improve the weapons of killing. The tribes then had this imposed upon them through fear. This isn't that. Anyways, as the tribes were broken down through the various phases of the technologic civilizations, whether it was through the Romans or whoever it was, as that was all evolving, the tribes were attacked and made to give up the ways of the earth and submit to the new God. Now, this happened to the Europeans before it happened to us. But what happened to us happened to the European children of the tribes also. But it happened maybe 800 years before it happened to us. And actually, in its own form and at a particular time within civilization, when the Europeans came to the Western Hemisphere, Europe was going through the Inquisition. And the Inquisition was basically the church establishing authority over the people of the earth, establishing authority. And they had like 500 years of Inquisition. And in 500, and in the Inquisition, and women were special targets because they were trying to erase that tribal memory of the earth as the mother and things. But the deal was that if you were accused of speaking against the church, you were automatically guilty, and they had to torture you, and you had to tell them all the names you could give them, and you would because of the ways that they tortured. And they seized all your property. 500 years of this. Because prior to that, the people were coexisting in some manner or fashion with the religious authorities, see, but they were still praying to their own, they were still closer to their tribal ancestry. So by the time Columbus got here, it was like a virus now within the human being, the physical spirit. And it's like it's now entering into the DNA, almost into the memory, the genetic. So the citizens have been afraid for a long time. They've been afraid. They've nothing but fear for so long, longer than us as the people here. Because our encounter with this whole perception of reality is 500 years, rather than 3,000.
One of the things that recently, in modern times, if you will, has changed our reality, and I don't think this can be debated, is a square box with a visual image, the television, and the way in which, what are your thoughts on television, John?
I don't think that it has changed our reality. I think that the overall advances in the overall advances in technology have changed our reality, and television is only one of those things. Because it seems to be that when you go back to Europe in the Middle Ages and they had the fiefdoms and the serfdoms and kept everybody basically ignorant as to what was really going on, see, it hasn't changed. Television didn't come along and change it all of a sudden, turn everyone ignorant to what was actually going on. They didn't know, See, so, television is not, it's not used, generally speaking, it's not used in the healthiest, best ways. This way. It's not used in responsible ways. Right? But I think that it's just one of, because you get down to it, faxes. A fax. Trying to save the forest, right? And everybody faxes everything everywhere, just plays sometimes. The paper has come from somewhere. So, so to me, it all becomes relative. Well, it's TV or whoever uses the fax, So, to me, it's the collective advancement of this technologic mindset without any sense of responsibility. And so the television, the movies did it, the radio, right? It's like, and what has been the television, see, the one thing about TV, because we know they will never use it responsibly. But you look within our generation, it helped to spread a global consciousness, all right, in spite of whatever the negatives of it are, of any form of the mass communication stuff. It helped to spread a global consciousness amongst human beings, all right, that had not really had that consciousness before, did not really have that understanding about, a whole lot of us like this. It helped to elevate the global consciousness in the technologic world of sexism and environment. See, and if there had not been this television and these things within our generation, we would not have raised that consciousness. See, and when we look at the evolutionary continuation, all right, the authoritarians and their way, and the need to, and the way of the earth and the need to live, these two ways, I think that the very fact that within our generation, the consciousness of sexism and environment was raised to the level that it's been raised, it won't go away voluntarily. All right, the women will not just turn around and walk away from it. And the environmental awakening, these people are not going to turn around and walk away from it either. But the authoritarians with their economic systems and all the things that they're creating now, there has to be, at some point, these things must meet. All right? And so whatever happened is that was brought about, that's an accomplishment within our generation. And I find it very interesting that the main accomplishment within our generation, to me, was raising that consciousness of environment and earth. Because it's almost like tapping into that unconscious genetic memory linkage, putting it back together. See, so we have accomplished that within our lifetime of raising it. See, and it's how we keep headed and keep going, and because it's through an evolutionary thing. And television, and in my experience with America as a tribal person, the television hasn't done anything the rest of their institutions haven't done in regard to me, whether it was their dime novels or whether it was their Wild West shows or whether it was their Hollywood grade B movies or whatever. Television is, see, to me, it's just the same old, it's business as usual. And So anyway, it's just, to me, it's just there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, actually, when I want to erase my brain, I watch TV. I do. It doesn't really erase it, but it does, you know.
Absolutely.
In a way.
The voice you're listening to is that of John Trudell. If you don't know who John is, in my estimation, amongst many things, he's a poet, and I played something from an album that's probably a good 10 years old early on. Tribal Voice was what, about, I don't know, 83?
What year is this? 1980.
This is 94.
Yeah, actually, I think we recorded that about 12 years ago.
I'm just a little curious. Let's get into that. You've had a number of albums, you know, that have come out over the years. Have you always had this ability to, how can I put it into words? See, I hear you being able to formulate thoughts and feelings and emotions into words that speak of such truth, and that's poetry to me, amongst other things. Have you always had that?
Well, I don't know. No, I can't say that. How about this way? I've always had my moments of coherency. All right? But the older I get, what I have learned is that there's a moment of equal incoherency that I got to deal with, right? See, so it may look good, sound good, but sometimes it's rough, man.
I got you. How did this happen? How did this start? How did you start putting it to music? When did all this occur?
Well, I started writing in 79, and I was, I met Jackson Brown, and Bonnie Raitt. I met them in 79, and I started writing in 79. And anyway, I kind of entered into Jackson's world. So basically meaning that I was around recording studios, and I had no purpose. I was just there. I mean, I had accessibility, and it was as good a place to be as any at the time. So I was around, you know, I was just around the environment, and I had started writing. But see, I'm not a musician, you know. I don't know a note from a letter, right? Mm-hmm. But at some point by 1980, I think it was the spring of 82, it seems to me, that I wanted to try and take what I was writing, the spoken word lines, because I'm not a musician and I don't sing. I'm not a singer. So I was going to have to, it was just, in a way, like a compulsion. This is something I had to do it, right? So obviously, because I did it, right? And, but it was to take the spoken word and put it with music. So the first effort at that was a tape called Tribal Voice. And we recorded that at Jackson's studio when he had a studio in downtown LA, and we recorded that over a weekend, I think, or something, over a couple of days, right? And so in some ways, yeah, Jackson helped, or he produced it basically, I think, right? But, so Tribal Voice was, and when we made Tribal Voice, what I wanted to do was I wanted to take, in a way it's got to do with energy, right? I mean, for terminology, I'm going to say energy. And I wanted to take and see what we could do with the voices, through the chants and the harmonies, through the spoken word, through the use of the drum, and through what the spoken word was saying, the thoughts. So I was looking in terms of these four natural elements. And what can we make with these four natural forms of energy or spirit? And can we make something with that? That would have a life when you feed it into the technological system. See, it would have its own life when it went in, so we know it would have a life. we weren't using the technological system to create the spirit. Just, right. So that was what it was all about. And I wanted to try that, and I also wanted to try it with electric music. But at that time, we made the tribal voice tape with the traditional music, and it took 2 years before I met Jesse Ed Davis, and then when I met Jesse Ed, I had the opportunity to make a tape we called AKA Graffiti Man, where I then took the spoken word and put it with electric music. And I wanted to do that. I went from Tribal Voice to Graffiti Man because I didn't want, and again, but this time it was still using the same, in my mind, formula about this spirit and this energy. Right? And, but now we were using the technology in a little bit different way because we were using all these electric instruments and the language of music. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Western music. But to see if we could mix these and see what kind of an energy, a life. And so we ended up, Jesse and Rick Eckstein and myself, we made a tape called AKA Graffiti Man. And just kind of, and I've made more tapes, right? The record business wouldn't deal with me. And so we put them out ourselves on our own label, the Peace Company. I was never real good at distribution, but we got some of them out there.
I want to sell all of these records.
Right.
With some purpose.
There was much conscious effort to do what I was doing, but yes, but it was, yeah. And I've been, and then, so this was 1985, we recorded this Graffiti Man tape, Jesse, and then in 86 we put a band together. And that was when my first time ever working with a band on stage. I was walking into this one cold. Cause I had done things from the stage as a speaker, but that's just me. Right. So all of a sudden, I'm here with these people and I got to fit into their synchronicity because they're speaking this language of music that's, but I can feel it, but I'm not a technician at it. But it's alright, I liked it. And so I'm still doing it the best that I can.
Recently the newest album is Johnny Damas and Me.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit. What's that album about?
How could I begin to tell you that? What I would suggest is, I don't know.
Do you like the way it turned out?
I'm very happy with it.
Are you?
Yes, I am. I'm very happy with it. And it's about, Johnny Damas and Me, is the title song, right? It's a song as well as it. And I think the whole album is about what Johnny Damas and Me is about, right? And that particular song is about how we deal with situations.
Do you have one cut in particular that stands out as something that, I don't know, something come to mind that you like? I've got the CD in my hand. What I was thinking is maybe I'll play something off it. We'll take care of a little bit of commercial business, and then we'll go from there.
Shadow Over Sisterline.
Okay, that's the fourth one. Let me throw that out in the machine. Mm-hmm. Just tell us a little bit about this and what the title is about and what the song represents.
Well, what I will tell you about it is that from the time I knew that I was going to make this album called Johnny Damas and Me, I knew there was going to be this song on there called Shadow Over Sisterland. It was the hardest song for me to get. It was the very last song I got. Right, I wrote 2 other songs trying to get Shadow. And that's what I'll tell you about it. I always knew it was going to be there, but it was a hard one for me to get.
And here it is. And we'll be back. This is KLOS.
We are one hero. Hey,
and moving the ego out of the way on my end, I'm humbled by the fact that I can rest assured, John, that you've never been played on the station before other than on my show. And maybe we'll go up to the hall and talk to the boss and say, hey, boss, we need something to spark the station because, frankly, our ratings suck these days. What do you think?
Well, they ought to use more spoken word music and music formats. Yeah. Start looking around for some of this.
Have you heard Robbie Robertson's new one?
Yes.
What do you think of it? You like it?
Well, yeah. You have to ask me this.
Don't have to answer it.
No, I understand it. No.
Just wondering.
No, for what it is, I do like it, yes. Mm-hmm. All right. But see, like we were discussing a little earlier in the program, see, I have a problem with I have a problem with the idea of perpetuating this Native American imagery. Right? And so, and my feeling is that, well, if there's anything missing in this album, it's because it's been approached from the Native American experience and not the experience of the people. So that will affect the energies that become a part of the overall thing, if that makes any sense.
That's loud and clear.
So that's what
to me
I perceived off of it. But I like it. It's a good album, right? But I think that there could have been more, I think.
Let me give out the numbers here, because we do have a few folks that have already called and are talking to Tammy in the other room, and I haven't even given out the numbers. So it is a little after 1 o'clock. This is KLOS Los Angeles, and if you'd like to be on this morning on Impact with my in-studio guest, John Trudell, you can call at any of the following numbers. If you have any questions or comments,